Welcome to Forward, a podcast from Hard Knock Press, where we explore the ideas, stories, and conversations that help build better athletes and better people. I'm Kevin Mulhearn, alongside Joe Clemente. Let's get started. Hello, folks. Welcome to Forward, Better Athletes, Better People, podcast episode number 2. We talked last week briefly, Joe, about your book, The Long Ride Home, how to help your kids shine in youth sports without driving them crazy. And toward the end of the book, you spend a lot of time talking about old school tough guy parents, which you said were the majority of parents who you deal with as a coach. We wanted to emphasize that this book is not a kumbaya book that everybody gets along and we're very happy if we lose 15-0 and we just want to have fun. That's not what we're about. But I wanted to emphasize in today's episode specific issues that pertain to the tough guy, old school type of parent, and how this book can help those kind of parents improve their parenting. And one thing that we're mindful of is that there will be some tough guy, old school resistance to the message of this book. I think a lot of the things about old school tough guys is they think that, okay, my way is the better way. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm talking about. This is mamby-pamby, but I'm going to do it the way I'm going to do it. And that's that. And we are doing this podcast for you to listen to this and maybe learn that there is a better way. Because I'm telling you, as a guy who used to be a tough guy, old school parent, and I've kind of learned how to adjust and modify that a little bit, I can tell you that there is a better way. I know it for sure. When you read Joe's book, you're going to realize that how to handle your kids is a delicate balance, and it's not all push, push, push all the time. So, Joe, one of the things I wanted to do is talk about our own personal backgrounds. You were a much more successful athlete than I was, but we both were athletes as kids. You were an all-state football and baseball player at St. Elizabeth High School. I played football, basketball, and baseball at Poly Prep. But we both had dads who were old school tough guys. And I want you to, first of all, say hello to the audience and talk a little bit about your experience with your own father as a kid growing up as a competitive athlete.
Hello, everybody. Right, part 2. This is awesome. I'm very excited. Talking about the old school way of coaching. Right, I've been around sports for a long time. Right, I've been coaching for over 25 years and dealing with athletes of all different types of skill level, abilities. Those are the things I think as a coach, first and foremost, that you need to know is what your kids are capable of. Right, you have to kind of classify them. Going back when I was younger, I was in a situation where my parents were divorced. So I had my biological dad and then I had my stepfather. My biological dad was a football player, ended up playing for Army. He was a quarterback, loved baseball, right, because I fell in love with it. And on the weekends that I would go with him, we'd go to Staten Island. He'd bring me to the schoolyard, and we'd play stickball, right? And he would try to beat me with a tennis ball, and I had this huge stickball bat, and I just started hammering balls, that he would throw to me, and he'd be like, hey, you're pretty good. And that was my relationship with him. And he was always very positive, and it was always about showing up whenever he could to make sure I was there on time. And it was never really like the skill thing. When my mom got remarried to my stepfather, he was all about baseball. He was Puerto Ricano. It was in his blood. He played at a high level when he was younger. He even played like fast pitch softball. How like that was crazy.
How old were you when your mom remarried?
So my mom remarried when I was 9. And so again, it went back and forth, right? I was traveling back and forth with my dad. And then I was at home. I lived with my mom and my stepfather and my sisters. So he would always find time. But the training that I got with him and the way he trained me was way different than when I went and hung out with my dad, right? Like my biological father. One of the things that I learned at a very early age is parents that are very passionate, let's call it very passionate about their sports, their training methods and the way that they act are way different than, other parents that want to keep it fun. Again, want you to be serious, but also need to know that there's a component in there to be able, hey, like go have fun, do the best you can, and if you need help, we'll figure it out from there. But at a very young age, right, at 9, 10 years old, it was almost militant, And if he came home and was like, hey, how many push-ups did you do today? How many sit-ups? How many swings did you take off the tee? Did you throw? Did you run? And I was like, none. I went up the street and hung out with my buddies, the Carroll boys, and we were hanging out, and we were playing wiffle ball and stickball, and that was where I practiced. Fortunately for me, hanging out with my buddies that were older, 2 houses up, playing with their older brother, made me much better, and I was very lucky. But I was very fortunate to be able to have my stepfather care as much as he did, right, about sports and about me and so forth and so on. There was always an expectation that you had to win everything, and if you didn't, you sucked, right? You were terrible. And in my mind as a young kid, like, it almost got to the point where I don't want to say I was afraid to go on the field and fail, but there was a point where I went on the field and I was afraid to fail, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So, because I didn't want to deal with what was coming afterwards. And again, eventually, when I got older, I literally had a conversation with him. I was like, listen, dude, if you want to be here and help me, awesome. Because I'm at a point where I've been working really hard. I'm much better than I was when I was a young kid. I'm getting physically stronger. I was very, thank God I was very gifted that I could hit the ball a long way. And then, we had that conversation. And even at that point, like, he would tell me, he'd be like, listen, I'm going to be down the right field line by first base. Make sure you take a look at me, before you're at bats. I'm like what? I got to worry about the guy on the bump. I'm not worried about you,
How old are you here?
It started when I was like 10 years old, 11 years old.
Okay.
And then into high school, freshman year, I had a conversation with him. I said, look, I want to take this serious, but I can't take this anymore. Like, you either got to back off or just come be a spectator. If you want to help me, then help me. But the way that you're treating me and the way that you're acting when I'm on the field around my friends, around families and coaches, like, it's bad. Like.
So what specifically would he do or say to you when you looked over to him behind the first base?
So he was the normal, like, crazy parent. He would stand there and be like, hey, make sure you stride straight. Make sure you're ready to hit. Kid's throwing hard. Or, hey, he's got a good slider, with 2 strikes. And I'm like, all right, man, I see it too. Right. Like, and it's just so repetitive, right? Like, I felt like, I know this sounds crazy, but like, I wanted to take a rubber mallet and just keep hitting myself on the head. Like, he's going to keep saying the same thing. Like, I get it. Like, that's where I think as parents, like, that's where the growth of the athlete really comes, because you could train a kid all you want, right? Like, you could get him lessons. You can be out there hitting. You could be out there throwing, feeling. But until they're capable of feeling it and teaching themselves, like, hey, that's the correction, like, they're trying to get to that point. Once they get to that point, now you have something. Now, some, like, Dr. Wright says, like, at 13 years old, they don't feel that. And then what happens is they get stuck with coaches, or they have their parents that have all spent all that time and money and their efforts, and now they go out and they struggle when they get to the big field. And instead of the parents being like, hey, all right, listen, we're going to figure this out, like, history repeats itself, right? I think you'll agree with me, right? So when they come on at 8 and 9 years old, they're terrible, right? Like, they walk everybody. They can't hit, or if they do, or they'll make a play, there's an error. They can't catch a fly ball, but they're having fun, right? And they love it. And all of a sudden they go, from 9 years old, and then they get to like the 50-70 field at 11, right? And at 12, they're gods, right? Because they're starting to get a little bit more physical. Bats, the spring-loaded sticks. And then like they check swing and the ball goes 220. It's a home run, right? And it's like, yay, like, oh my God, like I hit 20 jacks this year, with a loaded stick. Awesome. But then what happens is, and I tell everybody this, and I know this is going to sound really rough when I say this, right, Kev? I tell everybody when they get to 13U, like, unfortunately, like, unless they're physically strong, all 13U players suck, right? Because they're now the 8 and 9-year-old that they were when they were first learning, because now they're on the big field. And the big field is the great equalizer. You agree?
The big field separates the men from the boys, and kids can't and don't make that adjustment. And it's a big adjustment for parents, too, because you go from watching Little League with the drop 10s, where your kid's hitting 25 home runs a year,
Yep.
where every other game he's taking a stroll around the base. You're getting the certifiable Cooperstown home run, and you think, hey, this is great. Like, my kid's killing it. Then they begin the 13-year baseball campaign, and it's a different story. And it's humbling for parents sitting there watching the kids struggling. If they're lucky, they get one hit, 4 at bats, maybe a ball barely over the shortstop's head. You're just not hitting balls over outfielders' heads when you're 13 years old, because the outfielders are playing deep, because it's a big field. It also significantly enhances the value of a good outfielder. In Little League, from 8 to 11, you're putting the worst fielders in the outfield. You're hoping that nobody's going to hit the ball out there. But by the time you're 13, when there's that much space to cover, you'd best have some outfielders who can run and track a ball, because that's the difference between a lot of wins and losses. The bases loaded, the ball in the gaps where he's got to run 65, 75 feet to make a catch. Not easy. And it's a big difference between the Little League type game and big boy game.
Yeah, and the right fielder is probably your best athlete, because every ball that gets hammered to right field, he's throwing the guy out at first base.
I wouldn't go that far.
No, but you got to have a guy who's got a hose out there that's going to throw guys out at first base, right? Yeah. So you say that, and it's like it's so spot on, because when they go to Cooperstown.
Before you get to that,
is
there anything worse in sports than hitting a line drive, clean base hit to right field and being thrown out at first
terrible.
base? It's got to be the lowest of the low.
It's terrible. And every parent out there knows, like, that's when they get ignited, right? Like the kid had a hit. Yeah. Like, you took that was a hit. Let me ask you a question. In the GC, coach, did you put hit? And then, like, did he, because it really was a hit. And you're like, no, he was thrown out. It's not a hit. But for him, it was very gratifying that it was a real hit. But the bases are so far,
I'll tell you another subset, even worse than that, is when a guy hits a base hit to center field, and the guy running on first base is carrying a piano on his back and can't run, and he gets thrown out at second on a line drive base hit to center field. I've seen parents pull their hair out on that.
Oh, they get so mad. Yeah. That became a fielder's choice, right?
That's a fielder's choice out.
It's crazy. You were talking about Cooperstown, and in Cooperstown, or at a younger age, like at that 12-year-old level, I've seen it so many times. And I know that you have, because you've been around baseball for so long. But you'll see the kids in Cooperstown, the kids that are hitting line drives, that maybe didn't hit a home run in Cooperstown, but they're hitting doubles, single, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're hitting the ball hard. All of a sudden, they go to 13U. They're not expected to hit home runs, right? But now all of a sudden, they're getting a lot of hits. And the guy who was hitting all the home runs at 12U, and that, again, talking about our book, right? That's where parents start to lose it. Because they're like, my kid was hitting third, hit 20 jacks, right? And now he's got one hit, and little Bobby over there who couldn't get a home run the entire season, he's got 6 hits, right? Because he hits line drives or he hits hard on the ground. Like, the mental capacity, like, that's when parents start to, like, lose their mind at 13U. And it's hard, but they just need to understand it's a process. Trust the process. They'll get there.
So I want to just get back to your own upbringing as a child athlete when you were a kid. Is there one incident with your stepdad that really stands out in your mind as when he really employed the tough guy old school approach and didn't have the reaction on you that he had hoped?
Yeah. So, I mean, listen, I'm never going to forget this one, right? I was at Elizabeth High School getting ready to play a county game. The game before, I think I went like 0 for 4 or something like that. But I struck the ball. Like I just hit barrels. Like I think I hit like 2 line drives to the shortstop, like a line drive to center and right or left. Okay, it was one of those games. But I was 0 for 4, right? So I'll never forget. Like he kept me in the cages. I'm telling you, it had to be like 4 hours. My hands were actually bleeding. Okay, like I'm like, dude, I can't hit anymore. He's like, you're going to keep hitting until I tell you not. That you're going to stop. And I looked at him. I said, listen, you and I have been good for a long time. I said, but I'm telling you right now, I can't hit anymore. I said, if I keep doing this, then all that's going to happen is when we go and play the counties, right, I'm not going to be able to swing a bat. Okay, so unfortunately, right, what ends up happening? My hands are like totally like cut. And listen, I'm not complaining. Like guys do this all the time. They hit a lot. It's that the calluses had broken, right? The blisters had broken. It was deep, right? Because I just kept hitting. I was trying to explain to him. So, he was just obsessed with like, hey, there's going to be coaches there, college coaches there, and we got to win the counties, and you got to be great. Like it was just kept dropping the hammer on me. So day of the counties are there. I go into my trainer. I'm like, hey, man. I was like, I can't feel my hands. He took care, like, patched me up, right? Second skin, the whole 9 yards. And my first at bat, the kid was throwing pretty well, right? He was like 87, 88, good movement. And I'm telling you right now, Cap, I took a swing. I was like a day and a half late. I just couldn't feel my hands. And he is berating me down the first baseline, right? Like to the point of where I think he said more things in Spanish, right? So
hopefully you didn't know Spanish.
I didn't know it, but like I think he said more things in Spanish so that nobody knew what he was saying. But there was a lot of Spanish guys there, so they all knew what he was saying. And like I struck out, and it was terrible, right? And I'll never forget it. He walked from first base, walked around to where our dugout was, and he leant in and he was like, you suck. He's like, you're terrible. You suck. He's like, if you don't get this done. And I literally looked at him and was like, get out of the dugout. I was like, don't talk to me. Get out of the dugout. And I said a lot of other things because I was extremely upset that he didn't listen to me, that my hands were. But the crazy part is that I was so mad. Like I was so mad that my next at bats, like I hit the ball hard. I think I got a couple hits. I came back. We ended up winning the game, right? I had one of my buddies drive me home, okay, to my apartment. Because remember, I was at Elizabeth. And he came in, he was like, see, you toughed it out. And I was like, listen, man, you just need to leave. So I literally told my stepfather, like he needed to go back, go with my mom. And I literally stayed there for the next few days by myself because I couldn't talk to him. Like I was so upset. My high school coach, who's pretty chill, came to me and said, hey, listen, he's like, I know you were going through some stuff the other day. If you ever need to talk, he's like, but I just want to let you know, he's like, that's never going to happen again. And I was like, what do you mean, coach? He's like, I'm just telling you, I got your back and that's never going to happen again. So not that anything was ever said to me. And this is where I had a lot of respect for my high school coach. Not like it was never said, but I remember going out to practice the next day. Okay. And my coach was like, hey man, you're not taking any swings today. We got to let that heal. You got to be ready for, second round, the whole 9. And I saw him stop my stepfather. And I got to tell you, listen, I don't want everybody to think that like my stepdad was like this mean militant. It wasn't about that. It's just what the game did to him. It just changed him. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I think happens to the parents. Because other than that, like he was always there to be like, hey, how can I help? What do I need to do for you? Like,
and he also probably saw that you had a lot of potential, a lot of ability, and he wanted to foster it and enhance it. He wasn't trying to hurt you. He was trying to help you. But sometimes the old school tough guy approach needs to be modified a little bit. If I could, I'm going to tell you a few stories about my dad.
I definitely want to hear him.
My dad, Thomas Lee Mulhearn, was an only child and grew up in Brooklyn. He played baseball on the high school team with Joe Torre. And I remember looking at my dad's yearbook. He kept it, and there's a big picture of him and Joe Torre and a couple other guys on the team. Said, "Oh, yeah, he's not BSing. This is true. He played with Joe Torre." And we actually played travel ball when we were 8 or 9 with Joe Torre's son, Michael, who was a wonderful kid. So my dad actually hit over 400 as a senior for St. Francis Prep in Brooklyn, and he was really into baseball. One of the things that I remember very distinctly, and this is a story that shaped the whole way I approach not just sports but life and my career as a lawyer, everything. I was about 12 years old playing in a recreational basketball league, and we had a foul shooting contest at halftime of the championship game. The winner got a big trophy. The year before, the coach had just selected me to be the representative because I was generally the best foul shooter on the team. So I went to the contest and did pretty well. I think I came in second or third place out of 8 or 9 teams in the league. The next year, though, I think I'm about 13, maybe 14, and the coach says, "Okay, we'll do things a little differently. This year, we're gonna have a competition. 20 foul shots. Whoever makes the most goes to the competition." I remember saying, "Okay, no problem. I'll shoot 20 foul shots. Maybe I'll make 14 or 15. We're good." I started and I missed the first 2 or 3. Maybe I made 1 or 2, and then I missed 3 or 4 in a row, and I got disgusted, and I just started taking the ball and heaving it without even caring. Like, all right, I'm out. I just got so down on myself. I just started heaving it and missing wildly. I think out of 20 shots, I maybe made 6. My father was watching in the balcony. He races down. He was an Irishman with the fair skin, and when he got mad, he turned purple. I saw him storm down from the balcony, and his face was the color purple. And he grabs me by the lapel of my jersey and says, "Don't let me ever see you do anything less than 100% on a sports field ever again." I said, "I swear to God, you ever do that, I ever see anything like that again, I don't care where it is, how old you are, what level of play you are, I'm going to drag you off the field and do that immediately if I ever see anything less than 100% effort." And he had smoke coming out of his ears. He was so mad.
Steaming.
And I will tell you this, Joe, that is one of the benefits of the tough guy old school approach, because I can tell you my whole life, I've always tried to give 110% no matter what I do. I would think about that when I was playing sports in college, I was playing intramural football for my fraternity. I would think about that when I was working on a legal brief or preparing for an argument or preparing for a trial. I was not going to be outworked. Whatever happened as far as the result, sometimes it's out of your control, but nobody was going to outwork me, ever. That was what I really tried to base my legal career on, that, okay, I might not be the smartest guy, well, I'm not dumb, but I'm certainly going to be the hardest working guy. They're not going to find anybody else who's going to put in the time. And Kat will tell you, we would do a brief that was important. We would do 30 or 40 drafts because I wanted it to be perfect. It would be a midnight deadline for filing. I can't tell you how many times I filed it at 11:45 or 11:50 or 11:57 because we were struggling to the very end to keep rolling those drafts out. And I can tell you, it doesn't always result in great outcomes. I've had some really bad setbacks and disappointments in my legal career, but I can say this, and I say this proudly: never ever did I do anything less than 100%. And I used to always think about my dad. I used to think about that incident where he came up with purple face and implored me 110% all the time. Nothing less is acceptable.
So that old school was a positive, right? And that's what we've been talking about. Like when you read the books, it's about being able to figure out having a balance and being able to communicate and deal with your own kids or your athletes. That's something that you took with you forever.
Yep.
And again, I was talking about my situation. My situation wasn't like that, but again, I still had to learn from it, but so did he, right? Because after that, it was like, hey man, I apologize. So like our situations were different, but that's something that you're going to carry with you, or you have carried with you forever. My situation on that one incident, I carried with me, but knew that the outcome became okay because of how we dealt with it. So I think that's awesome, right? Being able to carry stuff like that.
I'll tell you another funny story. My dad used to be the manager for the Cadets, which is a premium baseball organization in Brooklyn.
Big time.
A lot of major leaguers out of that program. Joe Torre, Wayne Rosenthal played with me for 5 or 6 years. But my sophomore year in high school, we were just finishing up the season. They had a Babe Ruth championship game, and we played the Babe Ruth game on Sunday. And Saturday, I had a football game for Poly Prep. I was playing fullback. And I took a handoff on a run up the middle. I got popped in the shoulder, and I don't think my shoulder pads were on right or what have it, but I wound up breaking my clavicle. So very painful shoulder injury. I woke up the next day, and I couldn't even put on my jersey. I woke up in the next morning, and I couldn't lift my arm. My arm was in extreme pain. So my dad comes down. He said, "Okay, boys, time to get going." I said, "Dad, I can't move my arm." He looks at me and said, "Okay, put on a jersey. We might need you. We're missing a few guys."
He was like Miyagi's son, right? Here we go.
Well, Miyagi's son without that. So it took almost 10 minutes for me to put on my jersey. My brother, rest in peace, said, "Kevin, what are you doing? You can't do this," because I'm wincing in pain. It was extraordinary painful. It's a broken clavicle.
Yeah.
And finally get my jersey on. We go to the field. Wouldn't you know it, Cadets have 8 players and 9 including me. My father looks at me and said, "Kevin, you're in." I said, "Dad, I can't raise my arm." I said, what can I tell you? We need you. We have 9 guys. You don't play, we're going to forfeit. So I'm dragging my arm out to left field.
Like a lame horse, right?
I was the second baseman at that time. So my father says, "Go play left field. Nobody's going to hit the ball out there."
It always finds you, dude.
First inning, bases loaded, 2 outs. Other team hits a screaming line drive to left field. I'm running in with the arm shaking, and when you know it, I slide and I put my glove down because I didn't have to raise my arm, and the ball just kind of finds its way into the glove. Out, make the play. That's a nice play, Kevin. It's great. I get up. My father batted me 9th. First time up, I bunted. Perfect bunt down the line. Guy's not playing me to bunt. They're playing deep at the third base. So it was a pretty good hitter. I'm running down first base. Hugging my arm against my side. Get to first base safe. Second time up, 4th inning or so, same thing. Still playing deep. Just the knucklehead manager on the other team hasn't figured out that I'm a wounded horse. So I laid down the bunt again. Nice bunt down third baseline. Running down the side. Safe. 2 for 2. 2 bunt hits for the game like this. Later in that inning, I tries to hits the ball right at me, and it was one that I had to raise my arm over my head. Couldn't do it. It went like this. Ball soars over my head for a home run. So at that point, the coach realized that I'm dealing with a wounded horse here on the other side.
You're maimed.
So the next time I get up, the last time I get up, I remember he brought his outfielders and he put them like Eddie Cadell position, like 10 feet away from the catcher because they knew I couldn't swing the bat. So I hit a perfect bunt the third time, but the guy was playing 5 feet from home plate and he threw me out. Yeah. And my mother, when I came home that day, she said, "How'd the game go?" "But this is great. We won." She said, "Look at your kid. He can't even lift his arm." and my father was old school. I was going to play. I was the necessary guy for the team. And
team first.
I remember that day very distinctly. And that was the funny side, the positive side of the old school. There was a negative side too. We talked about this last week a little bit. The criticism could be withering when I didn't perform. I had a twin brother who I also was very competitive with. So if he or I, really fell down on the job and played poorly, we would hear about it from my father. And those were difficult nights when he would go and talk to us about our failures. And again, my father was a loving guy. He was a really present father. He was, out of all my kids' parents, I think my father was the one who was there more than anyone. And I just knew I had to adjust to the fact that, okay, if I'm not going to do really well, I'm going to hear about it. And I just had to develop a bit of a thick coat in order to handle that. Because I was a bit of a sensitive kid, and you don't like to be criticized by anyone, let alone the father. So I think my dad would have really benefited from reading The Long Ride Home. I don't know if he would have changed much, but but I think at the end of the day, there is a deeper, better balance that can be struck. So I'd like you to talk, if you could, for a little bit about some of the old school tough guy dads, and I guess there are old school tough guy moms too. I don't want to. Your daughter's a cheerleader, so
Oh, dude.
I'm sure the old school tough gal moms are aplenty. Why don't you talk about that a little bit? What you've experienced in your time as a coach and as a parent.
So, again, I'll be the first one to tell you that my wife deals with all of my daughter's stuff when it comes to cheer. As a from the baseball side or football side, listen, there's always going to be the parents that just don't get it. Okay. And we talk about this. Sometimes there's positive, sometimes there's negative. Old school approach, tough guy approach, like I want to be tough on. Again, I think you need to know the athlete and what they can handle, because everyone has a breaking point, right? And I think that's what you and I talk about all the time and what we talk about in the book, right? How do you help kids work through the situations that they're in without destroying them? That's all we're talking about here, right? We're not trying to blame people. We're not pointing fingers. We're just trying to help people. So I deal with more of the fathers. But I am going to tell you, over the last couple of years, the moms at baseball games have started to reach another level also. And I think the environment that we're in is going to dictate how we act. You agree with that, right? If a dad acts a certain way, most of the time, the kid is that way, okay? Because that's what he sees. If the dad starts to act like that, now the kid starts to act like that, well, the mom, like, she's got to fit the mold too. So now all of a sudden she starts to roll into that push. So again, I'm not here to point fingers, but I am going to tell you that things have gotten really, really crazy. I've seen so many things live that I can tell you about. Like for instance, one of my softball players, she's 7, okay? And she loves the game. She's really good at it. She's athletic, but guess what? She's 7. She likes to go there and hang with her friends. It's social time, right? And they're going to go out and they're going to play and they're going to have fun, win, lose, or draw. Okay. So I was actually caught off guard with this one. So my friend calls me and says, I said, you sound like you're upset. What's going on? She's like, yeah. She's like, I'm pissed. I'm like, why are you pissed? She's like, because the coach literally told the entire team today that they lost because they don't focus, that they're no good, that they'll never be anything. And I'm like, they're 7, right? Yeah, that makes no sense. I said, so whoever that coach is, make sure you don't play for them next year, because they're not there to help kids, right? That is just an ego thing, and they're just there to try to boost their ego with wins and beat their chest. Like that is a
chasing trophies.
Yeah, come on.
Right.
They're 7.
Right.
But you and I both see that. Like we'll see that for kids that are 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Again, 12 years old, you're the superstar. Right? That's where that bridge is really, really hard.
I have to tell you, I'm going to give a plug in here to Jim Wadicka for a second, because that out of all the coaches, Jim Wadicka with his dad Joe runs Wadicka Baseball Club, which Dennis played for 5 years, and a lot of the Don Bosco kids played on the team as well. And I can tell you that Jim actually is tremendous at striking the right balance, and he never chases trophies. He never chases championships. He chases teaching kids how to do things the right way and developing kids, and have a lot of fun while you're at it. Dennis' experience playing for Wadicka Baseball was tremendous at all levels. And Jim and Joe get a lot of credit for that. They're really two great people who actually have figured out the right balance.
Yeah, Jimmy and Joe are awesome. I mean, we've known Joe forever, right? Joe started the whole club showcase stuff. I mean, they're tremendous. And, you talk about Jimmy, and I know we're going to get into it later, but in the book, we talk about like push and pull, right? And if you ever, you could go to a field and you could tell which coaches use that method, like the push and pull method, immediately, because you could see, you watch their reactions, you see how they coach, you see how they communicate with the kids. It's not about embarrassing them. And most of the time, those coaches have a good beat on the parents. Like, they talk to the parents, like, hey, listen, this is what we have to work as a community, right? It takes a village, right, to be able to make this work. And again, you'd asked me before, in cheer, it's vicious. It's vicious, but I understand there's 20 girls on a team, maybe guys and girls on a co-ed, and the routine has to be perfect. And if somebody doesn't show up, but like I saw, like there were times that my daughter showed up at practice and she was sick. Like she was sick as a dog. She had the flu. She might even had COVID. I don't even know, right? But they were like, she has to be here. If she's not here, she's not, we're kicking her off the team. I'm like, whoa, And then what would happen is you sit in the stands, and this is why I stopped going. I stopped going to the events because I was there to see my daughter compete with her teammates, have fun. Like, I listen, we all want them to win. I don't want them not to win, but they work really, really hard. But I stopped going because of all the things that were being said behind the scenes, right? Where like parents didn't even know who I was, right? Because my wife was the face, right? Like I said, God bless her, right? She took that role on, correct? Like, I would just walk by, like I would hear parents say things that would like blow your mind, like wishing bad on other kids, like on other athletes that they're performing with. And I'm like, whoa, the animosity here is crazy. It was so thick, you could cut it with a knife.
Well, you read about some of those cheerleader stories in the news where people get like criminally crazy,
criminally crazy,
and wind up physically hurting other people who are competing with their daughters. And I saw that. I said, they take that seriously. And I talked to you and a few other people who have girls in cheerleading. So yeah, it's insane. You think baseball's bad? Cheerleading's twice as bad.
Oh my God.
So and that surprised me to hear that. As a guy with no daughters, I didn't realize that the cheerleading competition was that intense.
Oh, it's that's probably one of the roughest things I've ever seen. You compare it, like a couple of weeks ago, I was at a tournament and I'm walking from field to field and I'm getting ready to go play. And I see this guy at the fence screaming, "It's a strike! It's a strike!" Like from center field, like 200 feet away. It's a strike. Call that a strike.
I'm sure you had a better angle than home plate.
You know what I'm saying?
So
I got worried about the guy. So I'm like, dude, you all right, man? He's like, I just don't understand. They pay these guys to call strikes. That's a strike. I'm like, oh. I was like, listen, man, they're human. As I'm standing there talking to him, I'm watching like ball four, ball four, ball four, ball four. I'm like, dude, is your son playing? I was like, is he pitching? He's like, he's the pitcher. He's like, but this guy won't call a strike. And dude, I'm telling you, there was like smoke coming from his ears. He's losing his mind. And I'm like, they look pretty young. Like, how old are they? He's like, oh, my son's 8. I'm like, this guy is a lunatic. That kid is going to stop playing at the end of the year. And I said,
he's lucky he makes it to 10.
He's the only guy in center field. There's a reason. Parents know. Like, come on, man. Parents know the way they act. They're adults. Sometimes they like being the center of attention. Okay? They like screaming. They like yelling. They like doing that because it's an ego thing, right? Oh, I'm going to tell my kid. Everybody, listen, for all of you guys that are out there that do that, I'm going to just tell you something. All of us in the stands know what you're doing and think it's really dumb, right? Like, that's one of the dumbest things we've ever seen. So if you think like you're like being cool about it, no, it makes you look.
Well, there's a whole different universe, Joe. Yeah. A parent of a baseball player whose kid is a pitcher, and I can tell you, and this is what I said last week. I was going to talk about the ton of mistakes I made where they really started coming out. When my kid started pitching, he was a good pitcher from 9 to 12, 9 to 13. By the time he got to high school, he didn't grow into the pitcher's body. He was outfielder's body and shifted from pitcher to outfield. But he was a good pitcher when he was a kid. And I was crazy. I was a lunatic when he used to pitch. I remember going to Ripken in Maryland, has this beautiful complex where they have miniature football fields that mirror the major league fields. They have Yankee Stadium, they have Fenway Park, they have Wrigley Field, and they have Camden Yards. The main field, Camden Yards, which is right underneath the hotel. And Dennis was pitching once on Camden Yards field in the early round game, and I went directly behind home plate, and I started screaming at the top of my lungs, use your legs, throw harder. And finally, the boys, this is the Clarkstown Stars red team, coached by Brian O'Hare, his boy pitcher, Don Bosco, Dylan O'Hare. And Brian and Darren Epstein, Jeff Nevin, and Chris Conti were the coaches of this team. Great team, great group of guys, great group of kids. And I remember Darren had to come out from the dugout and said, Kevin, you need to leave the space that you're in right now. I said, what do you mean? He said, you can't be doing this. You can't be saying, use your legs, throw harder when you're standing 12 feet behind the backstop. It's distracting. It's not helping. So Darren, who was a good friend of mine, told me this, and I went to the other side and tried to be a little more quiet. I couldn't really help yourself. That when the kid is pitching, every pitch is like life or death. For me, it was anyway. And I was so over the top, and my poor kid, God forbid if he was wild, he was walking a couple of batters in a row, I would just unleash, and it wasn't pleasant. And really, as I sit here now, having read your book and having the benefit of maturity and hindsight, and having grown a little bit myself, I think, I realized that it was really very unproductive, very counterproductive, and very unhealthy for my relationship with my kid. All of it was bad.
Maybe a little embarrassing too.
Oh, I was embarrassed.
No, I'm talking about your kid.
Well, was he embarrassed?
You don't know, right?
I'm sure he was. I'm sure he was. And I'll say this. Sometimes I got in his grill when I think I needed to. I remember once he was playing with the Clarkstown Stars Red, and he dogged it on the play. He didn't run hard to first base, and my background with my old man.
Yep.
And that drove me nuts. So I went into the dugout and told the same thing. I said, Dennis, don't let me ever see you dogging it on a play again, ever. And I want to talk to you about this for a second, because this is interesting. I've noticed something that drives me absolutely insane, and it's at all levels of baseball, including the major leagues. I call it the early peel-off, where a guy hits a ground ball and doesn't even get halfway to first base, and he peels off back into the dugout. That drives me absolutely insane.
Drives me nuts, man.
The guy can't run 90 feet hard to the bag every single time, whether the ball's hit back to the pitcher or it's a one-hop of the first baseman. Run as hard as you can to first base every single time. The peel-off. And I hate to say, there's some Yankees who do it quite a bit. Jazz Chisholm, he does a lot of peel-offs. I can't understand how any coach would tolerate that for a second. If one of my Little League kids did that, if my own son did that, I'd be in their face. And I think with justification, again, attitude and effort. And you can control attitude and you can control effort. And there's no reason that any baseball player at any level, from 8 years old until major leagues, should ever be peeling off before they hit the first base. I can tell you at Don Bosco, I know Mike Rooney and Mike Dwyer.
No way.
If a kid peeled off, good luck getting back in the field for 2 weeks. That just won't. My own father, when he was coaching baseball, I did it once. I did it once on a ball hit to the pitcher. Guy threw the ball. I was out by 30 feet, 40 feet, peeled off. I can tell you that wasn't going to happen again. And that was lesson learned. Don't peel off.
Yeah, you were probably hungry that night when you went to bed.
I was hungry and my arm was a little sore.
Exactly. That's the way it works. But what you're talking about, like that hustle, that energy, and that effort, like those are controllable. I think that's where, like when you're going to coach, as a coach or a parent, those are things that you can talk about, right?
Yep.
And you can be stern about it, right? We're not talking about don't be stern about it. They need to understand, right? Because those are things that are controllable. But I think that the real issue, and that's why I wrote this, is when parents cannot separate. All right, this is the biggest thing. You always ask me this, is when they can't separate that their kid is out on the field doing everything they can to be successful, it's just not going their way that day. And that's where they start, that's where poison starts to set in their mind, right? Like no kid goes to the mound not trying to throw strikes, right? No kid that just spent $3,000 over the winter in hitting lessons, or they're still getting hitting lessons, goes to the plate not trying to hit the ball hard.
It's a fine line, Joe, because I think we just agree that criticism of insufficient effort is something that is okay. And in fact, I think if you don't criticize a kid for not trying,
Yeah.
you're doing him a disservice.
100%.
Okay. But criticism of lack of results and poor outcome, that's not okay. Because that's something that the kid can't control. He's trying his best, just not having the day he wants.
Exactly.
And it's a very big difference between criticizing effort and criticizing outcome.
Huge. I agree with you, Kevin. I mean, that's perfectly said. That's where things start to change in an athlete's mind. If the kid goes out there and he's giving it everything he has, and he's still getting beaten up, that's where they start to separate. And they're like, "Hey, I'm not having any fun anymore. I don't want to be here anymore."
I tell you, one of the things I like the most is I love watching a kid hit a ground ball to shortstop or third base and just dig. And he's going to be out 99 of 100 times, but I want to see that kid dig as fast as he can. Maybe he's only out by a step or half a step, but I love that extra effort, especially after a bad outcome with the bat, when you're not hitting the ball the way you want and you're still digging. And I tried to, when I coached Little League, I tried to instill that in my kids. One of my mantras was, there's no walking on my baseball field. There's no reason to ever walk on a baseball field, ever. You run or you jog, always. And it's true of, I think, a lot of sports. Effort has to be there. And we as parents have a duty, I think, to teach our kids how to give maximum effort, and that anything less than maximum effort is not acceptable. But we don't have an obligation to criticize every time things don't go well. And your book actually teaches that really well. It teaches the distinction between being a supportive parent and a hypercritical negative parent. And I can tell you, folks who are going to look at this podcast and read Joe's book, it's really worthwhile to learn that distinction. You agree?
Yeah, I think it's a necessity. Right. As a coach that's been doing this for a very long time, I can see it. Like, I can see the way certain kids that have a more supportive family, how they act on the field, how they come to play, how they're hustling, they're always doing what they need to do, whether they get hits that day or not, or they strike guys out or not. Like, it's just their mentality and how they show up and prepared. Right. I can see the difference on the kids that are coming from a situation where the parents are different. Maybe a little less supportive and more on you, and like they show up, and like you're always wondering, like, are they there? Like, are they there for them? Are they there for their parents? I mean, listen, we could tell right away when kids show up and they're actually there playing with us, right, on our Diamondbacks teams, our club teams, when and be like, hey, the only reason why they're here is because their parents are bringing them here. And then the crazy part, they're there, they're not having any fun, they don't want to be there. Then as they come off the field, they're getting berated with, like, why would you do that to the kid? Like, right. That you gotta talk to your kids and be like, hey, is this what you want to do? Don't guess about it, because a lot of them will be like, yes, I want to do it for you, right? For you. But if they're not doing it for them, like, they're doing it for the wrong reasons. And that's okay, right? There's so many things that are out there nowadays that kids want to do and be good at and enjoy, And honestly, between you and I, Kev, that'll actually make life at home much better for them, because it's a more positive situation for everyone.
A friend of mine told me, after looking at our preview of the podcast, that one of the keys as a parent is that the kid's desire to get better has to be greater than the parent's desire for the kid to get better. That the parent needs to be supportive of that drive, but not fuel it. My friend Steve Cavino from Muhlenberg College came up with that one. And I thought that was really spot on.
He's spot on, dude.
Yeah.
Spot on. The bottom line is that when you have to drag your kids to go work out, it's over. If they're dragging you, they got a shot. It's that simple.
Do you see that? Do you see that with kids who just don't want to do it anymore?
I see it a lot. I actually think that kids that are talented that don't want to do it anymore, it's to the point of where they're not having any fun because the parents recognize how good their kid is, right, or how good they can be, and the pressure is just twice as much as it would be if they were just okay. So like parents are trying to get it out of the kid, be like, hey, you got to go do this, you got to go do that, you got to do that. I'm telling you right now, parents, I'm telling you right now, if you got to do that, you're in the wrong sport, because ultimately they're going to wake up one day and be like, I don't care anymore. I'm not having any fun. And they realize that they're doing it more for the parents than they are for themselves.
So, Joe, if you had one tip, one lesson to the tough guy, old school, what would it be?
So, again, dealing with a lot of old school coaches and stuff like that, the best ones that I've had are the ones that know their athletes and understand like where they're at and how far they can go, right? So like what they need to do to like push them and then pull them back in, right? And be like, hey, I'm going to push you and you're going to keep, I need you to do this. Let's get after this. I'm going to be hard on you because I expect more from you because you could be great. But then when they do it and they accomplish the goal that you gave them, now you got to be able to say, hey, awesome job, man. I'm super proud of you. Nothing more than that. Like, hey, let's keep working hard, right? You've done what I've asked you, and listen, I'm super proud of you. And the parents have to understand that too. They also have to understand, right, Kev, that if you have an old school coach, okay, and he's hard, and you know that before you send your kid anywhere, right? So like, don't sit there and be like, oh, well, I didn't know that guy was so hard on my kid. No, you knew. Right? You knew that because you wanted, most of the parents send kids to programs like that because they want the disciplinary, right? They want the discipline side. I want my kid to be more disciplined because they don't want to do it, right? They didn't do it. Okay. But now what happens is where the mistake happens is that you have the old school guy who's putting pressure, push, no pull. And now you go home, the kid goes home, and the parents are now like, well, if the coaches can do it, I'm going to do it.
There's more push.
Yeah. So like there's got to be a pull somewhere that someone's got to be able to say, hey, man, I'm super proud of you. And I think, I pride myself, or I try to pride myself. That's how I coach, right? I know my kids, first of all. I know everything about my kids. I know what to expect. I know what they're good at, what their faults or limitations are. And then what I do is I go set that up because I want to set them up for success, right? Now, I'm going to push them to get to that point where I know that they can handle it and they're going to be successful. And once they get there, I need to reel them back in and be like, hey, man, you did an awesome job. I'm super proud of you. Let's keep going, right? Let's keep going. You good with that? Yeah, let's go. All right. I'm going to keep pushing you. And I tell them, I'm like, hey, listen, I'm not always going to show up and be your friend. Right? Because if I show up and I be your friend, that means that I'm not doing my job as a coach and making you better. But at the end of the day, when you do it, you've accomplished what the goals that we've set, I'm going to be the first to let you know how awesome you did. So, you know what I'm saying?
So how should a parent's behavior be different from a coach in that context?
So the parents are have to be parents, right? They have to be able to allow their kids to come home and have a safe haven a little bit. And I'm not saying that they don't get to talk about it. But like if a kid or an athlete always is getting pushed from both sides, eventually the bag's going to burst and they don't want to do it no more. So
you push them right out the door.
Yeah.
Into a career as a pianist.
It's something, right?
I used to always joke when Dennis was not doing well in baseball. I said, you always play violin. And he used to get furious about that because he knew that he wanted to play baseball, and my encouragement to play violin was really a subtle, maybe not so subtle insult.
I got to tell this real quick. Really good friend of mine, awesome coach. Unfortunately, passed away a few years ago. Awesome dude. Okay, as a coach, really, really hard on his kids. Savage, like crazy. Okay, I'll never forget this. His team was working out in my facility. And his son comes in, and they got all their bags lined up, And I'm sitting there and I'm walking past the bags, and on the one bag, I see a baby rattle, like a rattle. So I'm standing there and I'm watching. Yeah, you know what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here going, like, a baby rattle? Why would they have a baby rattle? So practice gets done. So I grab him and I'm like, dude, I was like, is there a congratulations? Like, did you have a kid that I didn't know about? I said, why has he got a rattle on his bag? And he looks me dead in the face. He goes, because he sucked last game. And I said, what are you talking about? He's like, he didn't get a hit. I was like, okay. He's like, yeah. He goes, he don't get a hit. He's got to wear that rattle. I said, that's what you make your kid do? Wear a baby rattle? I said, you know that's really loud. He goes, yep. He goes, I want everybody to know. And I looked at him. I said, listen, dude. I said, you know I love you. I said, you gotta take a step back. Your kid's a really good player, and all that's gonna do is like embarrass him and make him nuts. And he was like, you think that would embarrass him? I said, I'll tell you what. Let's take the rattle off and pin it to your chest. You know what I'm saying? While you're coaching and walking around work and stuff like that, and see how you feel. He's like, yeah, I guess I didn't really think about it like that. You know, and he's cool. Like, he was one of the, his kid.
What other way was there to think about?
You know what I'm saying? Like, to his kid, like, I was like, oh my God, this kid's going to, you know, I didn't know if he was going to show up the next time in a hula skirt or something. Like, what are you doing?
Is the kid still playing?
Yeah, well, not anymore, but he played high school baseball, did really well. You know, he lost his dad at a young age. It was hard, and he was a good dude. But even him, as a great coach, he was a great coach. But to his own kid, like, he would never do that to one of the other kids. Why would you do it to your kid? So, like, you talk about that, you know, and you realize that as parents, like, listen, if I'm going to have, my kid's going to come home and I'm going to treat them like that, like, that's beyond crazy.
So I wanted to thank you, Joe. This was, again, a lot of fun and hopefully educational and informative for our viewers. We're really excited to be moving forward on this podcast journey. I think the podcast allows us to reach a lot of people who are looking for some kind of guidance as to how they as parents can help their kids shine in youth sports.
Absolutely.
That's our goal, and we're going to have these continued conversations, which hopefully it's going to help people with the perspective that they need to be the best parents they can be. Again, 100% effort in everything. Part of the 100% effort also goes to parents. We're asking parents to make the best effort they can make as far as how to help their kids when they play in sports. And your book goes a long way towards that. So I thank you, Joe. This was fun. To our viewers, thank you for tuning in. Looking forward to next week's episode, and keep moving forward. Thank you. Signing off. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Forward. If today's conversation helped you, we'd love for you to subscribe and share it with someone who cares about developing better athletes and better people. Forward is a Hard Knock Press publication where we're building books, conversations, and ideas that challenge conventional thinking and help people grow. Until next time, keep moving forward.